tutorial for the work I'm wearing right now. I really want to give credit to where it's due. This was entirely inspired by Vincent Green-Hite of Not Bad, which check him out on Instagram. He's totally amazing and has great works. He started a website called Yarn Punk and kind of like a movement. And this is yarn punking clothes, and I got the idea off of his website and off of his Instagram post. So this is not an original idea to me, but I haven't really seen a tutorial on how to do it. So I really wanted to come up with a great tutorial to help other people try it out, because this was my first time trying it, and I think I might be addicted. It's really, really cool and kind of quickly satisfying because I didn't have to make the main body, and also it's a really cool way to upcycle clothing from your local Goodwill or thrift store. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope you enjoy the tutorial. But definitely check out yarnpunk.com, which I'll link down below, and check out Vincent's post on Not Bad. Thanks, I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Please like and subscribe. For this tutorial, you need the piece of clothing that you want to alter, and for me it's this Izod polo that I got at Goodwill. You need yarn to work with. It doesn't matter what you use, but whatever you use, make sure you choose a hook that is going to be the appropriate size. So I'm using some Caron Simply Soft and some other yarn that I don't know what it is. And then also a 5mm frills crochet hook. I also have a tapestry needle, which is a must, and then a Fiskars rotary blade with the 45mm adjustment. To begin, I'm going to cut off the sleeve of one side of the polo. I'm going to grab my rotary blade to retract the safety and then go ahead and cut my work. So I am going to strategically cut here. I'm going to cut along this line, not on the other side of it, because this way the fabric won't fray, and we're going to be adding to this piece, not this piece, so it doesn't matter if the sleeve frays. So I'm going to go ahead, without separating the two sides of the sleeve, cut very carefully. Don't be afraid to readjust while you're working, and as you can see, at certain points it didn't go all the way through to the other edge, but you can either pull it or just cut through it individually. So I'm going to realign and continue cutting. I just want to make sure it's perfect, that's why I'm going a little slower. Okay, and with that, my first sleeve is off. I'm now going to switch my blade. So this is actually brand new, I've never used it before. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And be very careful because these are extremely sharp. Yeah, you don't want to mess around. So to change the blade, I'm going to unscrew this. I'm going to pull the orange out. I'm going to very carefully remove this blade and place it back into here. Make sure you're safe and not cutting yourself. So I just place that back there, and I'm going to put the orange in. And you don't want to screw the back on too tight because then the blade won't be able to turn. So you might just have to play around with that. So now I am, to the best of my ability, going to place holes along this side that will be where my crochets will go. And I'm actually going to do it while this is on top of each other, so I'm going to try to do it all at one time. If it proves to be difficult, you'll obviously find out with me, and I'll not do that on the other side, but this is how I'm going to do it now. And I'm actually not going to go through this edge, I'm going to go right on the other side of it. So the good thing about this is these holes that it leaves are not big at all. They're big enough for what we need, but they're not going to be like... So here on the back, so on the next side I will probably go one at a time, but that's not too bad. And what I was saying is these holes aren't too big, so if you do mess up really badly and need to go back in, you definitely could. I might add 3 or 4 more holes right there where they're kind of far off the edge, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to kind of align where I think and then match back up. Okay, and now we can start adding thread or yarn. So to begin, you're working from the outside in, and you're going to pull your yarn all the way up, leaving about a 4-inch tail. You're going to reinsert into that same hole to secure the tail, making sure it doesn't pull through like it did right there. And then to make a knot, you're going to go from right to left through the loop you created. Now I do this twice in order to secure the knot even more, just to make sure that the sleeve is really sturdy on my work. And so now to create the rest of the stitches, you're going to continue this up and down motion, which I'll explain more as I move forward. So we're going up through the hole to the left, and we're pulling our working yarn all the way through. And this is at first this is going to be a little weird looking, but it'll eventually get more uniform as you go. And then you're going to work down through the bar that you just created by your up motion, and that is going to complete the stitch. So again, you can see here I'm working up through the next left stitch and pulling my working yarn all the way through. I'm then going to insert my hook going down and pulling the yarn all the way through. And this is going to create the signature look of a yarn punk piece, and where you're going to connect all of your crochet or knitting stitches. So here we go again, up through the next left hole, and then down through the next stitch. So I'm going to complete my sleeve, and I'll show you how I end this round. And to finish off, I've made it all the way around. I actually had to tie a knot right here to add more yarn, but I'm going to go back into the same one we started with, up, and then back down, and that'll finish the sleeve. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Finish the sleeve. And this last one might be a little wonky, but that's completely fine. And so then I'm going to tuck, this might not be the exact way to do it, but this is the tail from the beginning. I'm going to pull it through to the armpit. Okay, and so I'm going to go down through this one again. To create a knot, go into this. And then it's already knotted, but I am kind of a weirdo and like it to be really secure, so I will knot these 2 tails together. And now we can start to add crochet. Before we crochet, I just want to add, I mean, mine doesn't look exactly perfect, but something important to note is that you don't want the loops at the top to be too tight, because then your arm will cinch, and that's not really what we want. This is just the base layer. So whenever you're all ready and have your yarn secured at the armpit, we can go ahead and move forward. Now, you don't have to do this, but the way I'm designing my sleeve is that I'm going to do 4 rows of this blue and then 4 rows of white. So these rows will be really chunky in comparison to the blue and white here, which I think will look really nice. But what you don't have to do is go in with the same color you did the beginning row with. But you are welcome to do that, obviously. So I am going to go in to the first, this one's a little tight, see, I should have made it looser. I'm going to go into my first hole that I created. I'm going to form a loop with the yarn, pull it through, whoops, and with a long tail at the other end in the working yarn, I'm also going to be working double crochet. You can work in any stitch you want, but I'm going to chain 2 with the tails and then place a double crochet in that same loop because I'm not counting my chain 2, and then I'll just drop the tail whenever it gets too short. So that might look a little bulky, but it's under the armpit, so it's not a huge deal breaker. So I am just going to place 1 double crochet into every single bar we created around here. So this project's a really great way to get rid of some scrap yarn. I've had this blue yarn for a very, very long time and am now just getting rid of it. And it's not an exact color match to the blue here, but I think it's close enough and it's pretty enough that it's going to look great. And so the main design of almost all of my crochet sleeves, this one's not any different, is I will do 1 row without any decreases and then in the next row decrease 2. And this also translates to decreasing 1 every row, but I prefer to do 2 every other. And I'll definitely show you that in the next row, but for this first row we're just placing 1 row or 1 double crochet into every hole, and then I will meet you back here for the next row to show you how to decrease. So I have completed the first row and it is looking really great and I'm really excited. So now I'm going to join the round, and to do this I am not going to go into any part of the chain, but I'm going into the, I guess it would technically be the 3rd chain, and then creating a slip stitch. Okay, to explain that again, I chain 2 at the beginning, so you count 1, 2 in the 3rd chain, which is formed by creating this double crochet you're going into. So to do the next round, I'm going to chain 2, place a double crochet into this stitch, the very first one without skipping any. I'm going to double crochet 1 more, and then I'm going to place a decrease. So to do a decrease, you're going to yarn over, insert into the next stitch, pull through, yarn over, go into the next stitch, so you have a total of 5 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through 4, yarn over, pull through 2. So this decrease is at the beginning of the round, and the next one's going to be at the end of the round, and you're going to do it to the 3rd to last and 4th to last stitch. So you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and at these 2 you're going to decrease. So now I'm going to show you the decrease on the other end of the round, and it's exactly the same as the beginning. So I'm going to yarn over and go into the 4th to the last stitch, pull yarn through to have 3 strands on my hook. I'm going to yarn over into the 3rd to last stitch, pull through, and now I have 5. Yarn over, pull through 4 to leave 2, yarn over, and that does a decrease. And so I'm going to put 2 more in this round, and I want to show you something important while working in the round. Never, this is not a stitch, it's the slip stitch. Never work into that, otherwise you'll be getting an increase when you don't want it. And so now I'm just going to join the round by going in to the first stitch, and there we go. So I'm just going to keep working until it is the length I want by working a non-decrease and then a decrease row and alternating that. I'm going to be switching color. You definitely don't have to. This is totally a unique project for every person working on it. So I left off saying that I was going to show you how I finished my sleeves, how I usually finish them, and it ended up working a little different, so I want to explain some things to you that I noticed and some tips and tricks that I think will help you in your yarn punk journey. So one thing that I didn't notice, and I did a polo, so this might be specific to polos, but I kind of don't think it will be. Whenever I design a lot of my stuff, the silhouette is square. So the front and back panels will be square and it won't be an issue, so I didn't think of that here. But the sleeve is kind of shaped like this. And so whenever I was adding the first round, I didn't realize that it would need probably 4 rows to normalize. So I started my decreases in the second row, and I really should have started in the 6th row and gave it enough time to even out, because I don't know if you can tell, and this is another point too, if you use worsted weighted yarn smaller than probably what would work with a 5mm hook, then you're going to find this to be an issue also, is that this is going to pull in like this. The arm opening is going to be bigger than the sleeve you're crocheting onto it. And overall, it ended up being okay. It didn't really make the sleeve too wonky or anything. It just meant at the end, I didn't have to cinch the cuff. I actually stopped my decreases here, which I usually don't do. I'll decrease until the very end and usually do a decrease in one of the last rows every other so it cinches, but I didn't have to do that. Another thing I want to talk about too is what happens to the actual shirt. So I really wanted to find a shirt. I got this at the Goodwill, I think I said that before, that was thick enough to mimic the consistency of a crocheted sleeve. I knew that a regular cotton t-shirt was going to be just a little bit too small, and this polo was just a little bit hardier. And I think that ended up working in my favor, because where the holes are, the fabric is obviously ripped, and it might cause ripping or tearing in a weaker shirt. And I found that for this polo, it didn't really have that issue, except here where I messed up. And I'll kind of focus the camera here. You can see that there's almost 2 holes right next to each other hanging on by a thread. I'm actually going to go back and sew that whenever I've finished the tutorial. But I think it's because I messed up here whenever I was going back to add the second row. I accidentally went onto here, and so that's something too that you really have to make sure you don't do, because this is like the thickest part of the shirt and it looks like it's about to rip. So I'm gonna go back and reinforce that. And then another place, it was only on this side, the other side was fine, but I already sewed, I'm gonna reinforce this, I already sewed this together. I must have cut too far down when I was cutting off the sleeve, and so it started fraying along the seam. So just be mindful of that. You really want to make a piece that's sturdy, and you're not going to have to worry about it unraveling. But overall, this was a really fun project, and I can't wait to yarn punk more clothing. I have a black polo that I'm going to be yarn punking eventually, so look out for that. But please share with me what you guys make if you do choose to do this type of project. And check out yarnpunk.com, the website. I'll link it down below. That's where I got my inspiration for this. So happy yarn punking.